The great hall of Valmir Castle smelled of snow lilies and political desperation. King Cassian stood at the altar carved from black northern stone, his jaw tight as he watched the southern delegation file into the hall. Every muscle in his body screamed to shift, to run, and to be anywhere but here. But kings didn't have that luxury, especially not kings whose territories were bleeding from a decade of border wars. "Steady," murmured Lorien, his closest advisor, standing just behind his left shoulder. "It's one ceremony, one woman, and peace for your people. One woman, one lifetime, one slow death of everything wild in him." Cassian's fingers flexed at his sides, fighting the urge to let his claws extend. Around him, hundreds of witnesses packed the hall, northern wolves in their formal leathers, southern nobles in their elaborate silks, and between them, a chasm of mistrust so thick he could taste it like copper on his tongue. The agreement was simple. Brutal in its simplicity, really. He would marry the daughter of Duke Sylvain of Aradel, binding the southern territories to his northern kingdom. In exchange, the raids would stop. The bloodshed would end. His people could finally know peace. He'd agreed without even asking her name. "She's probably hideous," Lorien had joked 3 weeks ago when the treaty arrived. Why else would they hide her away in that southern tower? Cassian hadn't cared. Beautiful or plain, clever or dull, it didn't matter. This wasn't a marriage, it was a transaction. He would give her his name, his protection, and a suite of rooms far from his own. In return, he would have peace for his pack, and the freedom to keep his heart exactly where it was, locked away and frozen. The musicians began to play, some southern melody that grated against his northern sensibilities. The massive oak doors at the far end of the hall groaned open. Cassian's breath caught, not from awe, but from the sheer absurdity of the moment. After everything he'd survived, the wars, the challenges to his throne, the night he'd taken down 3 rival alphas in single combat, this was what would undo him. A woman walking down an aisle. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, her figure obscured by layer upon layer of white silk and lace. The Southern tradition demanded the bride remain veiled until the vows were complete, her face hidden as if she were some precious secret. Good, Cassian thought coldly. Let her remain a mystery. It would be easier that way. But as she drew closer, something began to tug at his awareness. A scent, faint beneath the cloying perfume of flowers. Wild honeysuckle and summer storms, completely at odds with the winter cold outside. His wolf stirred for the first time in months, pressing against his control with curious interest. Strange. She reached the altar, and Cassian forced himself to look at her properly. The veil was thick enough that he could only make out the barest suggestion of features, the curve of a jaw, the shadows where her eyes might be. Small, he noted clinically, barely reaching his shoulder. Her hands, visible beneath the cascade of silk, trembled slightly. Afraid then. Well, she should be. He was the beast king of the north. The monster mothers in the south used to frighten children into obedience. The officiant, an ancient wolf named Darius, began the ceremony in the old tongue. Cassian spoke his vows by rote, words he'd memorized but didn't feel. The bride's voice, when she responded, was barely a whisper, too soft for him to catch its true quality. "And now," Darius intoned, "the binding." This was the part Cassian had dreaded most. Not the vows or the political theater, but this, the moment when pack magic would seal them together. Northern tradition demanded it, a blood bond that would tie them as mates in the eyes of his people. He'd argued against it. Lorien had overruled him. Without the binding, they'll never accept her. She'll be queen in name only. Darius produced a ceremonial blade, silver-chased and ancient. He made a small cut on Cassian's palm, then turned to the bride. She held out her hand without hesitation, though Cassian saw her fingers shake. The blade bit into her pale skin. Their blood welled up, dark and red. Darius pressed their palms together, and Cassian's world exploded. Power slammed into him like a physical blow, wild, vast, utterly foreign. Not the familiar warmth of pack magic, but something else entirely. Something that tasted of ancient forests and forgotten gods, of magic that predated even the oldest wolves. His eyes snapped to the veiled face before him, his senses suddenly screaming danger and impossible, and what is she? Around them, the air began to shimmer with heat distortion. Several nobles gasped and stepped back. "Steady," Darius murmured, but his ancient eyes had gone wide with shock. The bride made a small sound. Pain or fear, Cassian couldn't tell. Her hand burned in his like a brand, their mingled blood glowing with an eerie silver-gold light that definitely wasn't normal pack magic. "What?" Cassian began. "The veil," Darius said quickly, his voice strained. "Remove the veil and complete the bond, or it will tear you both apart." Cassian didn't question. His free hand moved to the layers of silk and lace, finding the edge of the veil. He pulled, and the fabric cascaded away like water. He forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful, but that word was far too small for what he saw. Hair like spun moonlight fell past her shoulders, framing a face of such delicate beauty it seemed almost inhuman. High cheekbones, full lips, a small nose dotted with freckles that somehow made her seem both ethereal and achingly real. But it was her eyes that shattered him. They glowed. Actually glowed. Silver white like starlight with vertical pupils that marked her as decidedly not human, not wolf, not anything he'd ever encountered. And they were filled with absolute terror. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And her voice was like music, layered and resonant in a way that made his bones ache. "I didn't know it would. I tried to hide it. Please don't." The power between them surged again, and Cassian felt the binding snap into place with brutal finality. Not the gentle warmth of pack bonds, but something fierce and primal that wrapped around his soul like chains of starlight. "Mine," his wolf snarled possessively, waking fully for the first time in years. "Ours. Keep. Protect." "No," Cassian managed, even as every instinct in him screamed the opposite. This wasn't the plan. She wasn't supposed to be, whatever she was. She swayed on her feet, those luminous eyes rolling back, and Cassian moved on pure instinct, catching her before she could collapse. The moment he touched her fully, skin to skin, the bond flared again. And suddenly he was drowning in her emotions. Fear, shame, resignation, and beneath it all, a bone-deep loneliness that called to something broken in his own chest. "What is she?" Lorien hissed, moving closer. "I don't know," Cassian growled, adjusting his hold on the unconscious woman in his arms. She weighed almost nothing, her small frame delicate as bird bones. From the crowd, a southern noble pushed forward, Duke Sylvain himself, his face carefully neutral. "A moment, Your Majesty. If I might explain." "You sent me a bride you knew I wouldn't want," Cassian snarled, his control fraying. Around him, his pack stirred restlessly, feeding off his agitation. "What is she? What kind of creature did you bind me to?" Sylvain had the grace to look uncomfortable. "She is my daughter. And she is more than she seems." Clearly. Cassian's arms tightened protectively around the woman, his wife now, gods help him, even as his mind reeled. "What is she?" But before Sylvain could answer, the massive windows of the great hall exploded inward in a shower of glass and winter wind. Screams erupted as dark figures poured through the shattered openings, assassins dressed in black, moving with the supernatural speed of wolf-born warriors. But these weren't his wolves. The scent was all wrong, tainted with something acrid and poisonous. "The bride!" one of them shouted. "Kill the star-born before the binding completes." Star-born. The word meant nothing to Cassian, but his body moved before his mind could catch up. He shifted his grip on the unconscious woman, pulling her tight against his chest as he backed toward the altar. His other hand extended, claws sliding free as his wolf rose to the surface. "To your king!" Lorien's voice boomed across the chaos, and instantly Cassian's elite guard formed a protective circle around him. But the assassins were good. Too good. They carved through his warriors with brutal efficiency, and Cassian realized with cold horror that they weren't here for him at all. They were here for her. One broke through the defensive line, blade raised and aimed directly at the woman in Cassian's arms. He moved on instinct, turning so his body shielded hers, feeling the dagger score along his ribs instead. Pain flared, sharp and immediate, but he ignored it. "Leave her!" He heard himself roar, and the command carried the weight of his alpha dominance. Several assassins actually hesitated, their wolves responding to his power even as their human minds pushed forward. The woman in his arms stirred, a small sound of distress escaping her throat. And then her eyes opened, still glowing that impossible silver white, and fixed on the assassin raising his blade for a killing blow. "No," she whispered. Light exploded from her body like a dying star. Cassian felt the wave of power wash over him, through him, around him, ancient and terrible and beautiful. The assassins closest to them simply stopped, frozen mid-strike like statues, their faces locked in expressions of shock and rage. The woman gasped, her eyes widening in horror at what she'd done. "I didn't mean, I can't control." Then her eyes rolled back again, and she went limp in Cassian's arms. The hall fell silent except for the sound of his ragged breathing. Cassian looked down at the creature, the starborn, whatever that meant, cradled against his chest. His wife, his mate, according to the bond now burning in his soul. The woman who had just saved his life with a power he didn't understand. Around them, 7 assassins stood frozen in unnatural stillness, while the rest of his warriors slowly lowered their weapons. "Well," Lorien said into the ringing silence, his usual composure shattered. "That was unexpected." Cassian's laugh was sharp and bitter. He'd wanted a simple political marriage, a loveless alliance, a queen he could ignore while he focused on keeping his kingdom whole. Instead, he'd bound himself to a being of starlight and ancient magic who had just turned 7 trained killers to stone with a whisper. And the bond humming in his chest, that treacherous, undeniable connection, was already whispering that she was the most dangerous thing he'd ever hold. Not because of her power, but because some broken part of him already never wanted to let her go. Cassian's private chambers had never felt so small. He paced before the fire like a caged wolf, his earlier wound already healing, one benefit of his nature. Behind him, Lorien stood with arms crossed, watching the unconscious woman on Cassian's bed with the wariness of someone eyeing a loaded crossbow. "We need answers," Lorien said quietly. "What she is. Why assassins attacked during the binding. What Starborn means." "I know," Cassian growled, running a hand through his dark hair. He couldn't stop watching her, the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the way moonlight from the window painted silver across her impossibly pale skin. Even unconscious, she was luminous, otherworldly, beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. He hated it. "We've stationed guards around the perimeter," Lorien continued, "and I've sent scouts to track Duke Sylvain's movements. He fled during the chaos. We need to know where he went." "Find him," Cassian growled. "He has answers we need." The bond hummed insistently under his skin, urging him closer to her. Protective instincts he'd spent years suppressing roared to life every time he remembered the assassin's blade aimed at her heart. She'd saved him. This slip of a girl with magic he couldn't comprehend had turned killers to stone to protect him. Why? A soft knock interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Mira, his castle's head healer, entered with her ever-present herb bag. She was ancient even by wolf standards, her face a map of wrinkles, her eyes sharp as broken glass. Out, she commanded, gesturing at both men. Unless you want to hover like nervous pups while I examine her. I'm staying, Cassian said flatly. Mira's eyebrow rose. It's your wedding night, boy. Though I suppose hovering in the corner like a brooding gargoyle is one way to spend it. Mira. Fine. Stand there and glower. Just don't interfere. She moved to the bedside with surprising grace, her weathered hands gentle as she began checking the bride's pulse, her breathing, her temperature. Cassian watched every movement with predatory focus. He told himself it was because he needed to understand what she was, what danger she posed. Not because something in him couldn't bear the thought of her in pain. Well? He demanded after several tense minutes. Mira sat back, her expression troubled. Her heartbeat is wrong. Wrong how? Too slow. Too rhythmic. Like it's following a pattern humans don't have. She pulled back the bride's sleeve, revealing the smooth skin of her inner wrist. And these. Cassian moved closer despite himself. Barely visible beneath the skin were fine lines, not veins, but something that caught the light like threads of silver. What are those? Lorien breathed. I have no idea, Mira admitted. But they're spreading. Look. She traced a path along the bride's arm. When she first collapsed, they were only around her wrists. Now they've reached her elbows. Cassian's gut clenched. Is she dying? I don't know, Mira said grimly. I don't know what she is, so I don't know what's normal. But her body is doing something. Changing. And whatever it is, it's accelerating. As if in response to their voices, the woman stirred. A small sound escaped her throat. Distress or pain, and Cassian found himself at her bedside before conscious thought could stop him. Her eyes fluttered open, still glowing that unnatural silver. They fixed on him with startling clarity, then widened in fear. Please, she whispered, her voice rough. Don't hurt me. Something in Cassian's chest cracked. I'm not going to hurt you. You should. Her laugh was bitter, hollow. That's what you do with dangerous things, isn't it? Lock them away or destroy them. Is that what you are? He asked quietly. Dangerous? Her luminous eyes filled with tears. I don't. No, I didn't ask to be this. The vulnerability in those words did something to him. He'd expected many things from this arranged marriage. Resentment, perhaps, or cold political calculation, not this raw, wounded honesty. What's your name? He asked suddenly, realizing he still didn't know. The treaty documents had simply listed her as daughter of Sylvain. Thalia. She tried to sit up, winced, and fell back against the pillows. And you're King Cassian, the beast of the north. Her mouth twisted. Though I suppose now you know I'm the real monster. You saved my life, Cassian said before he could stop himself. Whatever you did to those assassins, you protected me. I didn't mean to. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I never mean to. It just happens when I'm frightened or angry and I can't control it and people get hurt. Her breath hitched, teetering on the edge of panic. Easy. Cassian's hand moved without permission, settling on her shoulder. The contact sent a jolt through the bond, warmth and recognition and something dangerously close to rightness. Thalia gasped, her glowing eyes going wide. You can feel it too, she breathed. The binding. It worked. Unfortunately, the word came out harsher than he'd intended, and he watched her flinch as if struck. Something in him recoiled at causing that reaction, but he pushed it down. Better she understood the truth now. This wasn't supposed to be a real marriage. I know. Her voice went small, dead. My father made that clear. You wanted peace, not whatever I am. So what are you? Cassian demanded, letting frustration bleed into his tone. What is Starborn? Why did assassins try to kill you in my own hall? Thalia turned her face away, fresh tears tracking down her temples. I don't know. My father never told me. He just kept me locked in the tower, hidden away where no one could see the light. And now? Her breath caught. Now I've doomed you too. Whatever curse I carry, you're bound to it now. That's not... Cassian started, but a wave of dizziness crashed over him so suddenly he had to grip the bedpost to stay upright. Cassian? Lorien was at his side instantly. What's wrong? I don't... The room tilted. Heat flooded through his veins, burning and wrong. He looked down at his hands and watched in horror as the same silver lines visible on Thalia's skin began to trace paths beneath his own. No, Thalia sobbed. No, 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 I did this to you. The binding. It's making you like me. Mira! Lorien's voice cracked with command. What's happening? The old healer moved with urgent speed, examining Cassian's arms, then Thalia's. Her face went ashen. The bond. It's not just spiritual, it's physical. Their magic is merging. Can you stop it? Cassian gritted out through clenched teeth. The heat in his veins was intensifying, painful now. I don't know how, Mira admitted, and for the first time Cassian could remember, she looked genuinely frightened. This is beyond me, beyond anything I've seen. Cassian's vision swam. He was dimly aware of Lorien catching him as his legs gave out, of being lowered to the floor beside the bed. Above him, Thalia's face appeared, haloed by silver light, tears streaming freely. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Everyone I touch, everything I love. I ruin it. I ruin it all. The agony in her voice cut through his own pain. Cassian found himself reaching up despite everything, his trembling hand finding her cheek. Not your fault, he managed. Didn't choose this, either of us. Her eyes widened at the absolution, and suddenly her hand covered his, pressing his palm firmly against her face. The contact blazed through the bond, and Cassian felt something shift, the burning pain easing fraction by fraction as their skin connected. That's it, Mira breathed. Touch. The bond needs physical contact to stabilize. How long? Lorien demanded. I don't know. Hours? Days? Until their magic finds equilibrium. Thalia was already moving, sliding from the bed with trembling legs to kneel beside Cassian on the floor. She took his face in both her small hands, her glowing eyes locked on his. Breathe, she told him, and her voice had that strange layered quality again, musical and ancient. Breathe with me. Let the bond settle. Cassian wanted to refuse, to push her away, and to maintain the distance he'd promised himself. But the agony in his veins gave him no choice. He pressed his forehead to hers and focused on matching his breathing to the slow, deliberate rhythm she set. In, out, in, out. The silver lines beneath his skin began to slow their spreading, no longer racing toward his heart with deadly intent. That's it, Thalia whispered. I've got you. The bond's got you. You're not alone in this. The irony nearly made him laugh. Hours ago, he'd wanted nothing more than to be alone, to keep this marriage cold and distant. Now he was kneeling on his chamber floor, clinging to a woman whose very touch was the only thing keeping him alive. Tell me, he rasped against her skin. Everything. What you are. What's happening to us? I wish I could. Her voice broke. But my father never told me. I don't understand my own nature. I just know that everyone who gets too close to me suffers for it. Not good enough. Cassian pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. If we're bound, if your curse, or gift, whatever it is now mine too, I deserve the truth. Then we'll have to ask my father, Thalia said bitterly. Because I've spent 23 years locked in a tower with nothing but books and warnings. Don't let anyone see you. Don't touch anyone skin to skin. Don't let the light show. And never, ever ask questions about what you really are. The pain in those words resonated with something in Cassian's own wounded chest. He knew what it was to be isolated, to be the thing people feared. We'll get answers. he heard himself promise. Together. She laughed, sharp and breaking. Together. What a strange word for a loveless marriage. Before he could respond, the chamber door burst open. A guard, wild-eyed and breathing hard. Your Majesty, urgent news. One of the frozen assassins just thawed. Before we could restrain him, he killed himself. But not before he said... Said what? Cassian growled. That the Starborn must die before she completes her awakening. That if she lives to reach her full power, she'll doom us all. Cassian felt Thalia go rigid against him. When he looked at her face, those luminous eyes were filled with a despair so complete it stole his breath. There, she whispered. Do you see? This is what I am. A doomsday prophecy in a wedding dress. And as the silver lines beneath both their skins began to pulse with eerie light, Cassian realized with cold certainty that his carefully ordered world had just shattered beyond repair. He'd wanted a political marriage to save his kingdom. Instead, he'd bound himself to a woman who might be its destruction. And the bond singing in his veins, that treacherous connection he'd never asked for, was already making it impossible to let her go. They moved Cassian to the bed by necessity, not intimacy. The silver lines had stabilized after an hour of contact, but Mira insisted they remain touching, at least hands clasped, until the bond settled properly. Whatever that meant. So now Cassian lay propped against pillows on one side of the vast bed, while Thalia perched rigid on the other, their fingers barely intertwined between them. She stared at the ceiling. He stared at her. You should sleep, he said quietly. Dawn was still hours away, but exhaustion painted shadows beneath her eyes. Can't. Her voice was hollow. Every time I close my eyes, I see those men. Frozen. Aware but unable to move. Trapped in their own bodies because Her breath hitched. They came to kill you, Cassian said flatly. You defended yourself. I turned them to stone. Finally she looked at him, those glowing eyes haunted. What kind of creature does that? The kind that survives. He squeezed her hand before he could think better of it. In my world, that's not a curse. It's a gift. She laughed, bitter and breaking. Your world. As if I'll ever belong to it now. You're my wife. The words felt strange on his tongue. Queen of the Northern Territories. Like it or not, this is your world now. A queen who's a monster. A queen who's powerful, he corrected. There's a difference. Thalia turned to face him fully, and something desperate flickered in her expression. Why are you being kind to me? You didn't want this marriage. You made that clear at the altar. Cassian was quiet for a long moment. She deserved honesty, at least. No, I didn't want it. I wanted... He trailed off, unsure how to explain the cold distance he'd planned to keep. But that's not what we have now, and I don't see the point in cruelty when we're stuck with each other. Stuck. She pulled her hand free despite Mira's warnings, and immediately both their silver lines flared brighter. She gasped in pain but didn't reach for him again. At least you're honest. Thalia. No. She slid from the bed, swaying but determined. I won't trap you in this. Whatever I am, whatever doom those assassins spoke of. You shouldn't have to die for it too. You can't break a blood bond, Cassian said quietly, watching her with predatory stillness. His wolf was agitated, disturbed by her distance and pain. Then I'll leave. She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of protection. I'll go far enough that your bond fades. You'll be free. And the silver lines? He held up his arm where they pulsed with eerie light. Mira said we need contact until they stabilize. If you leave now, we both die. Her face crumpled. Then what do you want from me? The question hung between them, raw and desperate. Cassian found himself rising from the bed despite the way his head spun, crossing to where she stood trembling by the window. I want, he said carefully, to understand what we're dealing with. I want answers from your father about what you are, And I want. He stopped himself, the next words too dangerous to speak. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning every time you're in pain. What? Thalia pressed, stepping closer. Tell me. Their eyes met, his wolf gold, hers glowing silver, and the bond flared between them with such intensity that Cassian forgot how to breathe. This close, he could see flecks of actual starlight in her irises, swirling and shifting like galaxies. Impossible. Beautiful. Terrifying. I want, he heard himself whisper, to know why I can't stop looking at you. The confession hung in the air between them. Thalia's lips parted in shock, and Cassian watched her pulse jump in her throat. Without thinking, his hand rose to cup her face, just as he had when the pain was overwhelming them both. But this time, there was no agony to justify it. Just the electric warmth of skin on skin and the bond singing in approval. Cassian, she breathed, and hearing his name in that musical voice did dangerous things to his chest. This is a mistake, he said, even as his thumb traced the line of her cheekbone. We shouldn't. I know. But she leaned into his touch anyway, her eyes fluttering closed. I know it's not real. Just the bond making us feel. Is it? He asked quietly, because the draw he felt toward her had started the moment her veil fell, before the bond snapped into place. The moment he'd seen her face and forgotten every vow he'd made to keep his heart locked away. Thalia's eyes opened, searching his face with desperate hope. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. But I know that when you touch me, it's the first time in my life I haven't felt alone. The words shattered something in Cassian's carefully constructed walls. He should step back. Should remember this was supposed to be political, practical, and anything but real. Instead, he found himself lowering his head until his forehead rested against hers, that gesture of intimacy she'd used to calm the silver lines. Your father has a lot to answer for, he murmured, locking you away, keeping you ignorant of your own nature. He said it was for my protection. Her hands came up to rest against his chest, tentative. But I think maybe he was afraid of me too. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. But there was wonder in her voice now, not despair. The bond? Can you feel it? How it gets stronger when we're close? Cassian could. It hummed between them like a living thing, warm and insistent. And beneath it, something else. His wolf, usually so controlled, was pressing against his skin with urgent need. Mine, it growled. Mate. Claim. Keep. I feel it, he admitted roughly. And it's... The words died as Thalia rose on her toes, bringing her face breathlessly close to his. It's what? She whispered against his mouth. Every instinct Cassian possessed screamed at him to close the distance, to taste her, to give in to the bond demanding they seal this connection properly. But some last thread of sanity held him back. Dangerous, he finished. This is dangerous, Thalia. I know. Her breath ghosted across his lips. But I've been locked away and afraid my whole life, and you... Her hand slid up to frame his face. You make me feel brave. That confession broke him. Cassian's control shattered. He closed the final distance and captured her mouth with his. The kiss was nothing gentle. It was fierce and desperate, and 3 years of loneliness on his part meeting 23 years of isolation on hers. When their lips met, the bond exploded between them, not painful this time, but overwhelming in its intensity. Power crashed through Cassian's veins, wild and primal. He felt Thalia gasp against his mouth as it flooded through her too, felt her fingers dig into his shoulders as her legs went weak. He caught her easily, one arm banding around her waist to hold her up, the other hand tangling in her moonlight hair. She tasted like starlight and summer storms, and Cassian couldn't get enough. He angled her head, deepening the kiss, and felt her melt against him with a small sound that made his wolf roar in satisfaction. Mine. it sang. Ours. Mate. But then Thalia stiffened in his arms. She broke the kiss with a gasp, her glowing eyes gone wide with shock. And something else. Something that looked like terror. No, she breathed. No, no, no. What's wrong? Cassian's hands moved to her shoulders, steadying her. The bond. Did I hurt you? Look. She held up her hands and Cassian's blood went cold. The silver lines weren't just beneath her skin anymore. They were glowing through it. Bright as moonbeams, and spreading with terrifying speed. But that wasn't the worst of it. Her hands were beginning to turn translucent at the fingertips, like she was dissolving into starlight. Thalia. It's the awakening, she gasped, panic flooding her voice. The assassin said, before the new moon, but the bond, it's accelerating it. I'm not ready, I can't. Her knees buckled. Cassian caught her as she collapsed, her body going rigid in his arms. The light pouring from her skin was blinding now, forcing him to squint against it. Mira! His roar shook the chamber. Lorien! But even as his advisors burst through the door, Cassian knew they couldn't help. Whatever was happening to Thalia was beyond any healing, any magic he understood. She was transforming into something else entirely, and the bond linking them meant he could feel every moment of her agony, every cell of her body tearing apart and rebuilding into something new. Make it stop. She sobbed against his chest, her translucent hands clutching at his shirt. Please, make it stop. I don't know how, Cassian said, and hated the helplessness in his voice. He was a king, an alpha, the strongest warrior in his territory, and he couldn't save the woman dying in his arms, the woman who was supposed to be nothing but a political alliance, the woman whose kiss still burned on his lips. The woman his traitorous heart was already claiming as something far more dangerous than a wife. As Thalia's light grew brighter and her body lighter in his arms, as she began to slip away into whatever transformation awaited her, Cassian made a choice. If she was transforming into starlight, then he would follow her there. The bond connected them. Her power was in his veins now, mixed with his blood and wolf magic. If she was awakening into something new, then maybe, just maybe, his presence in the bond could anchor her, keep her from dissolving entirely. Hold on to me, he commanded, his voice carrying alpha dominance even as his hands cradled her with impossible gentleness. Don't let go, Thalia. Whatever happens, stay with me. Her glowing eyes found his through the blazing light. I can't. It hurts. I know. He pressed his forehead to hers again, pouring every ounce of his will through the bond. But you're not alone anymore. I've got you. The bond's got you. So hold on. Thalia's fingers dug into his shoulders with desperate strength, and Cassian felt the exact moment she stopped fighting the transformation. The light exploded outward. And suddenly they were falling through starlight and shadow, through ancient magic and primal power, through a place between worlds where neither fully wolf nor fully mortal could survive alone. But together, linked by a bond neither had asked for, they fell as one. The last thing Cassian heard before the light consumed them both was Lorien's horrified shout. Then there was only Thalia's light, her terror, her trust, and the undeniable truth that he would follow her into any darkness, any transformation, any doom. Because somewhere in the span of a single catastrophic day, his loveless alliance had become something terrifyingly, impossibly real. Cassian woke to silence, not the comfortable quiet of a winter morning, but the oppressive hush of a world holding its breath. He lay perfectly still, taking inventory. His body felt wrong, too light, too warm, humming with energy that shouldn't be there. The bond. Memory crashed back. Thalia's transformation, the blinding light, falling through starlight while her terror flooded through their connection. His eyes snapped open. He was still in his chambers, sprawled on the floor beside the bed. Early morning sun painted everything in shades of gold and amber. And there, curled against his chest like she belonged there, was Thalia. Breathing. Solid. Alive. Relief hit him so hard it stole his breath. She looked different in the soft light, her skin less translucent than it had been during the transformation, but there was an ethereal quality to her now that hadn't existed before. Her hair seemed to catch and hold light like spun silver, and even unconscious, a faint glow emanated from her skin. "You're staring," she murmured without opening her eyes. Cassian's heart kicked against his ribs. "You're awake." "Barely." She shifted slightly, and he became acutely aware that they were tangled together, his arm around her waist, her hand resting over his heart, their legs intertwined. "How long?" "I don't know." "Hours?" He should move. Should put distance between them. Instead, his arm tightened fractionally. "What do you remember?" "Everything." Her eyes opened and Cassian's breath caught. They were still silver, still glowing, but now they held actual stars within them, tiny points of light that swirled and shifted like galaxies. "The light, the pain, and you." She touched his face with trembling fingers. "You followed me, into the transformation. I felt you there, keeping me anchored." "I didn't know if it would work," he admitted roughly. "It did." She sat up slowly, swaying slightly, and Cassian's hands moved to steady her automatically. "But something's different now. I can feel—" She trailed off, her glowing eyes going distant. "Everything. Your wolf. The pack bonds connecting you to every wolf in the castle, the earth beneath us. Even the stars, though it's daylight." Her voice cracked. "It's too much. How do you bear it?" Cassian understood instantly. His own wolf senses were overwhelming at first. The ability to hear heartbeats rooms away, to smell emotions, to feel the pack's presence like a constant hum under his skin, but to suddenly have all that and more, with no training to filter it. "Look at me," he commanded gently. "Focus on one thing, just one. Pick something and let everything else fade to background noise." Her eyes locked on his, those swirling galaxies fixed with desperate intensity. "You. I'll focus on you." The words shouldn't have made his chest warm the way they did. "Good." He kept his voice steady, soothing. "Now breathe with me. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. She followed his rhythm, her breathing gradually slowing, her shoulders dropping from their rigid line. After several minutes, some of the panic faded from her expression. "Better?" he asked. "A little." She managed a weak smile. "Is this what being bonded feels like? All this connection?" "Part of it." He helped her back onto the bed, noting the way her legs trembled. "Though you're not just bonded. You're something else entirely now." "Starborn," she whispered, and the words seemed to resonate in the air around them. "But I still don't know what that means." A sharp knock interrupted them. Lorien entered, his face haggard but relieved. "You're both awake, thank the gods." He looked between them with obvious concern. "The transformation lasted 18 hours. We weren't sure you'd survive it." 18 hours? Cassian rose from the bed, steadying himself as dizziness washed over him. "What's happened?" "The frozen assassins. 3 more thawed overnight. Before we could question them, they killed themselves. But they all said the same thing. Warnings about the Starborn's awakening." Lorien's jaw tightened. "And there's something else. A messenger arrived from Duke Sylvan." Thalia went pale. "My father sent word?" "He's asking to meet with you both. Claims he has information about what you are, about the awakening stages." Lorien hesitated. "He says there are 2 more transformations ahead, and the final one. It's called the choice." The room fell into heavy silence. 2 more, Thalia breathed. "How am I supposed to survive 2 more of that?" Cassian returned to her side instinctively. "We'll face them together. Just like this one." But the bond, she looked at him with fear in her luminous eyes. Each transformation pulls you deeper into this. What if the next one hurts you? What if I... You won't. His voice carried absolute conviction. The bond works both ways, Thalia. Your starlight balances my wolf magic. We're stronger together. He's right, Lorien confirmed. Mira examined you both while you were unconscious. The silver lines have stabilized into a permanent pattern. Your magic has merged. Wolf and star. Perfectly balanced. Thalia looked down at her arms, where delicate silver tracery now decorated her skin like living tattoos. So this is permanent? Everything about this bond is permanent, Cassian said quietly. For better or worse. She met his eyes and something passed between them. An understanding. A promise. Then I suppose we'd better learn to make it work. Before Cassian could respond, another wave of dizziness hit him, this time stronger, forcing him to grip the bedpost for support. His wolf snarled inside his mind, restless and demanding. Cassian? Thalia was at his side immediately, her hands on his face. What's wrong? I don't... Heat flooded through him, but different from before. Deeper. His wolf was pushing against his control, trying to surface without his permission. The silver lines, Lorien said sharply. They're moving again on your arms. Cassian looked down and watched the delicate tracery pulse and writhe beneath his skin. Not spreading this time, but concentrating, flowing toward his chest in rhythmic waves. What's happening? Thalia demanded, her voice sharp with fear. The bond, Mira said, appearing in the doorway with her herb bag. It's not complete yet. The first transformation merged your magic, but wolf bonds require... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Physical completion. Cassian's wolf snarled louder, and suddenly he understood with crystal clarity what his body was demanding. A claiming bite. The instinct was overwhelming, primal. His wolf wanted to mark Thalia as his mate, to seal their bond in the ancient way of his people. And the silver lines, her star-born magic flowing through him, was amplifying that need until it bordered on madness. No, he gritted out, fighting for control. Not like this. Not when I can't. But his wolf was stronger than his will. His vision shifted into wolf sight, his canines elongating. The transformation was starting whether he wanted it or not. Cassian, look at me. Thalia's voice cut through the chaos, commanding despite her fear. She cupped his face in both hands, forcing him to meet her glowing eyes. You said to focus on one thing, remember? So focus on me. He tried. Gods. He tried. But the wolf was too strong, too desperate to complete what they'd started with that kiss. Mine. It howled. Ours. Claim now. I can't stop it. Cassian rasped, his humanity slipping away. Thalia. You need to leave. Get away from me before... No. Her hands tightened on his face. I'm not leaving you to fight this alone. You don't understand, he growled, his voice already more wolf than man. If I lose control, if the wolf takes over completely, I'll claim you. Mark you. And there's no taking that back. Her luminous eyes searched his face, and he saw understanding dawn. The bite, she whispered. Like the assassins mentioned. A claiming bite. Yes. His claws were extending now, his wolf surging forward with undeniable force. And I can't. I won't do that to you without your consent. Not when you might not even want... Cassian. She pulled his face down until their foreheads touched. Listen to me. I felt you in the transformation. I felt your strength keeping me anchored when I would have dissolved into nothing. You saved my life. That doesn't mean... It means I trust you, she said fiercely. Wolf and man. Both parts of you. So if this is what the bond needs, if this is what keeps us both alive... Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Then claim me. The words shattered his last thread of control. His wolf surged forward completely, and Cassian felt his human consciousness slip beneath instinct and primal need. But even as the beast took over, he heard Thalia's whispered words echoing through the bond. I trust you. I choose you. Both parts of you. And that trust, that choice, was the only thing that kept him from completely losing himself in the claiming that followed. The wolf moved with purpose. Cassian's human mind was still there, buried beneath instinct, but his wolf had taken control of their body. It pulled Thalia closer with impossible gentleness despite the fierce need driving it. Mine, the wolf rumbled, nuzzling against her throat where her pulse beat like a hummingbird's wings. Mate. Claim. Complete. Everyone out. Lorien's sharp command cut through the room. Now. Give them privacy. Cassian heard Mira and the guards retreating, heard the door close firmly. Then there was only Thalia's scent, honeysuckle and starlight, and the overwhelming need to make her his in the most fundamental way. She tilted her head back, baring her throat in the ancient gesture of trust and submission. I'm ready, she whispered. Do what you need to do. But even through the wolf's dominance, Cassian's humanity fought to the surface. Not like this, he thought desperately, not when she's only agreeing out of fear or obligation. The internal battle raged as his wolf lowered its head to her exposed throat, canines elongating for the claiming bite. But instead of biting immediately, something made him pause. Her scent. Beneath the fear he expected, there was something else. Not just acceptance, but desire. Real, genuine desire mixing with her terror. She wants this. His wolf recognized with satisfaction. Not just tolerating, wanting. That realization gave Cassian the leverage he needed to claw back partial control. His wolf still held dominance, but now they were working together instead of fighting. Thalia, he managed to rasp, his voice still more growl than words. Tell me, the truth. Is this what you want? Her glowing eyes met his and he saw no hesitation there. Yes, she breathed. I want this. I want you. Both parts of you. The honesty in those words shattered the last barrier between man and wolf. They moved as one, lowering their head to that perfect spot where her neck met her shoulder. This will hurt, Cassian warned, his voice a strange blend of human speech and wolf growl. I know. Her hands came up to grip his shoulders. I'm not afraid. He struck. His teeth sank deep into her flesh, and Thalia cried out, pain and something else mixing in the sound. The claiming bite released wolf magic directly into her bloodstream, marking her as his mate in a way that could never be undone. But the moment his teeth pierced her skin, something extraordinary happened. Her star-born power surged up to meet his wolf magic. Instead of the violent collision Cassian expected, the two energies merged, swirling together like galaxies colliding, creating something entirely new. Through the bond, he felt her pain transform into pleasure, felt the claiming mark form on her throat in a pattern of silver stars. And he felt the exact moment their bond snapped into its final, complete form. True mates. Not just politically bonded or magically connected, but soul-deep partners in every sense that mattered. Cassian released the bite, licking the wound gently to seal it. When he pulled back to look at Thalia's face, her eyes were streaming tears, but she was smiling. I can feel you, she whispered in wonder. Not just through the bond. I can feel your wolf, your human side. Everything you are. It's like we're one person in two bodies, Cassian finished, his humanity fully returned now. He touched the claiming mark on her throat reverently, watching it shimmer with silver light. I can feel you too. Your fear, your courage, your loneliness. His voice cracked. Gods, Thalia. How did you survive being that alone for so long? Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't think I would survive, she admitted. I thought eventually the awakening would kill me, or I'd go mad from isolation. But now, she pressed her hand over his heart. Now I have you, and maybe that's enough to survive whatever comes next. Cassian pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the bond settled into its new configuration. For several minutes, they simply sat together, adjusting to the profound intimacy of being truly mated. Then alarm bells began clanging throughout the castle. No, Cassian growled, his peaceful moment shattered. Not now. But the bells continued their urgent warning, and moments later Lorien burst through the door without knocking. Cassian, we're under attack. Void priests, dozens of them, breaching the outer walls. Thalia went white. Void priests? What are those? Fanatics who believe Starborn are abominations, Lorien said grimly. They've been extinct for centuries, but apparently not completely. And they're using some kind of anti-magic that's eating through our wards. Cassian was already moving toward his weapons rack, but Thalia caught his arm. Wait. The awakening. My power is stronger now. I can feel it. Her eyes glowed brighter. I can stop them. Absolutely not, Cassian said immediately. You just survived one transformation. Using your power now might trigger the second one. Then it does, she said with fierce determination. I won't hide while your people die protecting me. Thalia. No. She straightened to her full height, and despite being a foot shorter than him, something about her presence filled the room. You claimed me as your mate. You said we're stronger together. So let me fight beside you. Cassian looked at her. This woman who'd been locked in a tower, who'd known nothing but fear and isolation, who'd awakened into impossible power, and chose to use it protecting others instead of herself. His wolf rumbled with approval. Strong mate, worthy mate. If we do this, he said slowly, we do it together. You don't face them alone. Together, she agreed. They armed themselves quickly, Cassian with his sword, Thalia with nothing but her power and determination. By the time they reached the main courtyard, the battle had already begun. Void priests in black robes poured through breached gates, wielding weapons that pulsed with dark energy, the opposite of creation magic. Where their void blades struck, matter simply ceased to exist, leaving wounds that didn't bleed so much as dissolve. Cassian's wolves were fighting desperately, but they were losing. Void magic was the perfect counter to their primal energy, and every wolf that fell simply disappeared, unmade. Thalia, Cassian said quietly, if you're going to do something, now would be the time. She stepped forward, positioning herself between the void priests and the castle. Get your people back, she commanded. All of them, behind me. Cassian didn't question. He barked orders and his warriors retreated to form a protective semicircle behind their queen. The void priests saw her and stopped their advance. The leader pulled back his hood, revealing a face ravaged by void corruption, skin gray and cracking, eyes black as pitch. Starborn, he rasped, his voice like stones grinding together. You cannot be allowed to complete your awakening. You'll tear reality apart. Maybe, Thalia said calmly, or maybe I'll create something better than what you've built. Insolent child, we warned Duke Sylvain this would happen, that binding you to the Wolf King would only accelerate your transformation. The priest raised his void blade. Now we must correct his mistake. Your father is dead, killed by our order for his weakness, and you'll follow him into oblivion. Thalia's hands clenched into fists at her sides, and Cassian felt her rage and grief explode through the bond. Her father, dead. The man who'd locked her away out of love, trying desperately to protect her. You killed him, she whispered, and her voice echoed with layers of power. You killed the only person who ever loved me. He was weak, the priest spat. He thought he could hide you forever. But the prophecy cannot be denied. You are an abomination, and we are the... Wrong, Thalia interrupted, and light began to emanate from her skin. You're wrong about everything. My father wasn't weak. He was the strongest man I knew, and I'm not an abomination. The light grew brighter, the silver lines on her skin igniting like molten metal. I'm exactly what I was meant to be. She raised her hands and stars formed in her palms, real stars, burning with the heat of distant suns. You want to see what a starborn can do? Her voice resonated with ancient power. Let me show you what happens when you threaten everything I love. She brought her hands together, and the stars merged into a single point of impossible brightness. Then she released it. The wave of creation magic that exploded outward was devastating in its beauty. Light and heat, and the raw power of possibility made manifest. Where it touched the void priests, their darkness simply dissolved, unmade by something older and more fundamental than their borrowed void energy. They didn't even have time to scream. When the light faded, the courtyard was empty except for Thalia standing at its center, her hair whipping in an impossible wind, her eyes blazing like newborn galaxies. Then she collapsed. Thalia! Cassian was moving before conscious thought, catching her before she hit stone. Her skin was fever-hot, the silver lines spreading faster than ever before. Did we win? She gasped weakly. You destroyed them. All of them. He pulled her against his chest, feeling her heartbeat stutter. But the power, it's too much. You're burning up. Had to, she whispered. Had to protect our people. Her eyes rolled back, and Cassian felt through the bond as she began to slip into the second transformation. Not gradually this time, but all at once, her star-born power demanding evolution or death. No, he growled, pulling her tighter. Not again. You just finished the first awakening. Your body can't handle. But even as he protested, he knew it was too late. The second transformation had already begun, triggered by her massive power expenditure. And this time, there was no gentle buildup. Her body was going straight from stable to critical. Through the bond, he felt her slipping away, not into unconsciousness, but into something deeper. Her essence was dissolving, spreading too thin across too much power. She was dying. No, Cassian said again, this time with absolute conviction. I won't let you go. He did the only thing he could think of. The claiming bite had anchored her through the first transformation by merging their magic. Maybe if he reinforced that connection, poured every ounce of his wolf strength through their bond, it would be enough to keep her together through this one. Cassian bit down on his own wrist, hard enough to draw blood. Then he pressed the wound to Thalia's mouth. Drink, he commanded, using every bit of alpha dominance he possessed. Take my strength, my life, if you need it. But you stay with me, Thalia. You stay. Her body responded to the command instinctively, her throat working as his blood, infused with wolf magic and their completed bond, flowed into her. The silver lines on her skin flared brilliantly, then began to stabilize, not stopping the transformation, but slowing it enough that her body could handle the change. Cassian felt his own strength draining away as she pulled on their bond, using him as an anchor just as he'd intended. His vision began to blur, darkness creeping in at the edges. Worth it, he thought as consciousness started to slip. If this saves her, it's worth everything. The last thing he felt was Thalia's hand finding his, their fingers intertwining as they fell together into the second transformation. Together, as they'd promised, as true mates should. Cassian woke to warmth and light, not the blinding radiance of transformation, but gentle golden sunshine streaming through familiar windows. He was in his bed, covers, pulled up to his chest, and every muscle in his body ached like he'd fought a war. Finally, Thalia's voice, soft and relieved, came from beside him. You've been unconscious for 2 days. He turned his head to find her curled up next to him, propped on one elbow. She looked different again. More solid than after the first transformation, but her skin still held that otherworldly glow. The claiming mark on her throat shimmered with silver stars. 2 days? His voice came out rough. The second transformation is complete, she finished. Thanks to you. Her eyes, still filled with swirling galaxies, shimmered with unshed tears. You gave me your blood, your strength. You nearly died anchoring me through it. Memory returned in fragments. The void priests. Her devastating power. The transformation beginning too fast. His desperate decision to reinforce their bond. Did it work? He asked, though the answer was obvious. She was here. Alive. Looking at him with something that made his chest ache. It worked. She touched his face gently. The second awakening is complete. My power is stable now, balanced by your wolf magic through the bond. A tear slipped down her cheek. You saved me again. We saved each other, Cassian corrected, catching her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. That's what mates do. The word hung between them. Mates. Not just politically bonded or temporarily connected, but true partners in every sense. The claiming mark on her throat proved it, as did the matching silver pattern now visible on his own skin. I can feel you, Thalia whispered. Every emotion, every thought almost. It's like you're part of me now. You are part of me, he said simply, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Before she could respond, a soft knock preceded Lorien entering with Duke Sylvan, leaning heavily on his arm. The old Duke looked terrible, gaunt and pale, bearing obvious signs of recent torture. Father. Thalia was off the bed instantly, rushing to embrace him carefully. They said you were dead. The Void Priest said. They lied to enrage you, Sylvan said, his voice rough with emotion. To make you use your power recklessly. He held her tight despite his obvious pain. I'm sorry, little star. I'm so sorry for everything. For the lies, for locking you away, for sending you into this marriage without preparation. He looked at Cassian over her shoulder. But I'm grateful. Your mate saved you when I failed to. Cassian rose from the bed, wrapping a robe around himself. You have explanations to give, Duke. About what Thalia is, about these transformations, about why the Void Priests want her dead. I do. Sylvan settled into a chair with obvious pain. And I'll tell you everything. But first, he looked at his daughter with profound sadness. You need to know the truth about your mother, about what you really are, and what awaits you in the final awakening. Thalia returned to Cassian's side, and he wrapped an arm around her waist automatically. Tell us, she said quietly. Sylvan took a shaky breath. Your mother was starborn, fully awakened, having survived all 3 transformations. She was magnificent, powerful beyond measure, with the ability to create or destroy reality with a thought. His expression crumbled. But that power, it consumed her. Slowly, over years, she lost herself to it. Forgot what it meant to be human. In the end, she tried to fix the world by remaking it entirely. I had to... His voice broke. I had to stop her, to end her before she destroyed everything. Thalia's hand found Cassian's, gripping tight. You killed my mother? I loved your mother, Sylvan said fiercely. But I killed the monster her power turned her into, and I swore I'd never let the same thing happen to you. He looked between them. That's why I researched everything about Starborn history. Why I sent you to the strongest alpha I could find. Because ancient texts spoke of one way to prevent the corruption, a true mate bond that could balance the power. Wolf magic, Cassian understood, grounding her starlight. Exactly. Sylvan leaned forward intently. Your mother had no anchor, no one to balance her nature. But you, Thalia, you have him. Your power flows through your bond, tempered by his wolf strength. You're not alone in your magic. The third transformation, Thalia said quietly. What happens during that? Sylvain's face went grave. The final awakening unlocks your full potential. the power to create or destroy on a cosmic scale. When it comes, you'll face the choice. Embrace the power fully and risk becoming what your mother became, or reject it and unmake yourself. Dissolve your essence back into pure starlight. Death or corruption, Thalia whispered. Those are my options? There's a third way, Sylvain said urgently. One that's never been tried because no starborn has ever had a completed mate bond during the final awakening. If Cassian anchors you through it, if your bond is strong enough, you could keep the power without losing your humanity. Could, Cassian noted. Not will. It's never been done, Sylvain admitted. But theoretically, your combined magic should create perfect balance. Starlight and wolf, creation and instinct, possibility and groundedness. You could become something unprecedented, a starborn who keeps both power and soul. Thalia turned to Cassian, her luminous eyes searching his face. That's asking a lot. To trust that our bond will be strong enough to keep me from becoming a monster. I trust you, Cassian said simply. Not the bond. You. I've seen who you are, Thalia. The woman who used her power to protect people she'd just met. Who chose bravery over fear at every turn. No amount of power will change that. How can you be so sure? Because I know you. He cupped her face gently. And because if the power does start to corrupt you, I'll be there to pull you back. That's what mates do. They save each other. Sylvain cleared his throat. There's one more thing you should know. The third awakening won't come for months. Perhaps half a year or more. The final transformation happens when your soul decides it's ready. Use the time to strengthen your bond, to master your current power. His voice went soft. And Thalia, choose life. Choose love. Trust that together, you're strong enough to carry the weight of creation without being crushed by it. After Sylvain left, Thalia and Cassian remained in their chambers, processing everything they'd learned. She stood at the window, looking out at the kingdom spread below, her kingdom now. Are you afraid? Cassian asked, coming to stand behind her. Terrified, she admitted. What if I become like my mother? What if the power corrupts me despite the bond? Then I'll do what your father did, Cassian said quietly. I'll end it before you can become that, because I love you too much to let you lose yourself. Thalia turned to face him, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. You love me? I think I started falling for you the moment your veil fell, and you looked at me with those terrified, beautiful eyes. He wiped her tears away gently. I certainly knew it when I followed you into the first transformation without hesitation, and now, he pressed his forehead to hers. Now I can't imagine existing without you. I love you too, she whispered. I didn't think I was capable of it after spending so long alone, but you make me feel brave, like maybe I'm not a curse after all. You're not a curse. He kissed her softly. You're my mate, my queen, my star-born miracle, and whatever comes with the third awakening, we'll face it together. Together, she agreed, and the word had become their sacred promise. The months that followed were filled with growth and discovery. Thalia learned to control her star-born power, no longer fearing it, but embracing it as part of who she was. The royal progress through both territories was a success, with even skeptical nobles gradually accepting their unusual queen. And through it all, Cassian and Thalia grew closer, not just as mates, but as partners in every sense. They learned each other's fears and hopes, scars and dreams. The bond that had begun as political necessity transformed into something infinitely more precious. True love, the kind worth fighting destiny for, the kind worth risking everything to protect. When whispers of the third awakening began, months later under a blood moon, Thalia and Cassian stood together in their chambers, hands intertwined, ready to face whatever came. I'm ready, Thalia said, her glowing eyes filled with trust and love. With you beside me, I can face anything. Always beside you, Cassian promised, until stars fall and wolves forget to howl. I'm yours, and you're mine, and nothing will change that. The third awakening would be their greatest test, a transformation that would determine not just Thalia's fate, but the fate of their entire world. But as they stood together, their bond blazing bright with combined magic, they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Together, they were stronger than any prophecy. Together, Wolf and Star could balance creation itself. Together, they would prove that love, real, chosen, fought for love, was the most powerful magic of all. And whatever the choice demanded, whatever sacrifice the final transformation required, they would face it as they'd promised from the beginning. Together. Thank you so much for listening to The Alpha King Agreed to a Loveless Alliance. I hope you enjoyed Cassian and Thalia's journey from political marriage to true mates, and the exploration of what it means to choose love, even when destiny seems determined to tear you apart. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, all my tales are available on Spotify under Lily's Romance Library. You'll find the link in the description below. Your support truly means the world to me. Until next time, may you find your own person who makes you brave enough to face the impossible.